They laughed at my Etsy shop, calling it a hobby while I paid their rent for 5 months straight. When I finally said no, my stepfather's fist answered for him right after I'd covered their utilities. They thought I was just the family ATM with a craft addiction, but they didn't know about the bank statements I'd been collecting, the lease in my name, or the local news reporter who had just agreed to hear my story. If you've ever been the family cash cow while being treated like dirt, you'll want to hear how this ends. My name is Ally Grant, and I'm 29 years old. As I sit here in my small studio apartment, surrounded by boxes of handmade jewelry and art supplies, I can still feel the sting of his palm against my cheek. But let me start from the beginning, back when I still believed family meant something. I wasn't always the craft girl they mocked. 5 years ago, I had a decent job as a junior accountant at a mid-sized firm in Philadelphia. The work was mind-numbing, but the paycheck was steady. Every morning, I'd put on my blazer, grab my coffee, and pretend I wasn't dying inside as I stared at spreadsheets for 8 hours straight. The Etsy shop started as weekend therapy. After particularly brutal days of corporate meetings and passive-aggressive emails, I'd come home and lose myself in creating things, beaded jewelry, hand-painted cards, custom bookmarks. My tiny dining table became my workshop, and for a few hours each night, I remembered what it felt like to actually enjoy something. My mother married my stepfather when I was 15. Richard seemed nice enough at first. He brought flowers, took us to dinner, and made my mom laugh in a way I hadn't seen since my dad left. My half-sister Emma came along 2 years later. And suddenly, I wasn't just a daughter anymore. I was the built-in babysitter, the homework helper, the one who should know better whenever anything went wrong. Ally, can you watch Emma? We're going out. Ally, she needs help with her science project. Ally, you're so good with money. Can you help us figure out this budget? By the time I hit college, I was already conditioned to be the family problem solver. When Mom lost her job during my junior year, who did they call? When Richard's gambling debts came to light, who emptied their savings account? When Emma needed braces, designer clothes, the latest iPhone, guess whose credit card got the workout? I told myself it was temporary. Just until Mom got back on her feet. Just until Richard found steady work. Just until Emma graduated. There was always another just until. And I kept falling for it because that's what family does, right? The breaking point came during COVID. My accounting firm downsized, and I found myself with a pink slip and a severance package. Most people would have panicked. But I looked at my Etsy shop, which had grown from a dozen sales a month to hundreds, and made a choice that horrified my family. You're doing what? My mother's voice pitched high enough to shatter glass when I told her over dinner. You're going to sell crafts full-time. Richard didn't even look up from his phone. That's not a real job. Ally, you need to get back out there. Find another firm. Emma, now 19 and still living at home, snorted. Oh my God, you're going to be one of those weird craft ladies. What's next? Essential oils. I pushed my mashed potatoes around my plate, feeling my cheeks burn. My shop made $8,000 last month. That's not sustainable, Richard said, finally gracing me with eye contact. You got lucky. Christmas season. People stuck at home. It won't last. But it did last. My shop grew. I expanded my product lines, collaborated with other artists, and built a social media following. Within 6 months, I was making more than my accounting job ever paid. I rented a small apartment closer to the post office, set up a proper workspace, and even hired a part-time assistant during busy seasons. My family's attitude shifted, but not in the way you'd hope. Instead of pride or support, there was resentment. Every success I shared was met with dismissive comments, or sudden financial emergencies that only I could solve. Must be nice to play with beads all day while the rest of us have real problems, Richard would mutter whenever I visited. Your cousin Jennifer just got promoted to senior manager at her firm, Mom would say, as if I hadn't just told her about landing a wholesale deal with a boutique chain. Emma was the worst. She'd tag me in Instagram posts mocking girl boss culture and send TikToks about nepotism babies who think they are entrepreneurs. The irony of her calling anyone privileged while living rent-free at 21 wasn't lost on me, but I kept my mouth shut. Looking back, I can see the pattern clearly. They needed me to be less than them. My success, small as they deemed it, threatened the careful hierarchy they'd built. I was supposed to be the responsible one who bailed them out, not the one who actually made something of herself, and certainly not from something as frivolous as arts and crafts. But I loved my work. I loved the customers who sent photos of themselves wearing my pieces at their weddings. I loved the creative freedom, the flexibility, the pride of building something with my own hands. For the first time in my adult life, I woke up excited about the day ahead. That should have been my first warning sign. In my family, happiness was something you earned through suffering. And I hadn't suffered nearly enough for their liking. The girl who spent her college fund on their debts, who worked 2 jobs to help with their bills, who sacrificed her 20s to their needs, she wasn't supposed to find joy in playing with beads. So, when the call came that would start the 5-month nightmare, I should have seen it coming. But I was still that 15-year-old girl who wanted to believe that family meant something more than shared DNA and mutual obligation. I was about to learn exactly how much that belief would cost me. The call came on a Tuesday evening in March. I was packaging orders, my dining table covered in tissue paper and thank you cards, when Mom's ringtone interrupted my podcast. Ally, honey, I need to talk to you about something. Her voice had that carefully rehearsed quality that meant she'd been practicing this conversation. I set down my tape gun, already knowing where this was headed. What's wrong, Mom? It's not wrong, exactly. It's just Richard's unemployment ran out last month. And with Emma's car payment and everything else. She paused. I could picture her in their kitchen, twisting her wedding ring the way she always did when asking for money. We're a little short on rent this month. How short? $1,800. I closed my eyes. Their rent was $2,400, meaning they had $600 between them. Mom, I just paid for Emma's spring tuition fees. I know, and we're so grateful. This is just temporary. Richard has some promising leads, and my disability should be approved any day now. The same promises I'd been hearing for years. Just this once, Ally. We'll pay you back as soon as. You don't have to pay me back, I interrupted, already pulling up my banking app. This is really the last time I can do this. I have my own bills. Of course, sweetheart. Just this once. That was the first lie. 2 weeks later, Richard called. He never called me directly, which should have been my second warning. Ally, your mother doesn't know I'm calling, he started, his voice uncharacteristically humble. But the electric company sent a shut-off notice. With her health issues, we can't lose power. I wouldn't ask if it wasn't an emergency. $437. I paid it. Then came April's rent. Mom called, crying. This time Richard's promising leads had evaporated. Her disability claim was delayed again, and Emma had crashed her car. Just liability damage, thank God. But the deductible cleaned them out. I can't cover your whole rent again, I said, staring at my own bills. I can do 1,000, but you need to figure out the rest. Oh, Ally, that's more than enough. You're saving us, just this month. I promise. May brought new excuses. The IRS had frozen their tax refund over some old debt. Richard's truck needed repairs, or he couldn't get to job interviews. Emma's hours at the mall job had been cut. Each story came with evidence, notices, bills, screenshots, as if they needed to prove their desperation. By June, I wasn't even pretending to believe it would stop. The calls came like clockwork around the 25th of each month. The amounts varied: rent, utilities, Emma's credit card minimums, Richard's medication. I set up automatic transfers to save myself the monthly humiliation of hearing their increasingly creative explanations. My savings account, carefully built over 5 years, began its steady drain. The vacation fund gone, the emergency fund depleted, the money I'd set aside for a larger apartment with a dedicated studio space transferred to their landlord. The worst part was their complete lack of awareness. Or maybe it was willful ignorance. They'd call asking for money, then post Facebook photos from restaurants I couldn't afford. Emma's Instagram showed new nails, fresh highlights, concert tickets. Richard joined a golf club, networking for job opportunities, he claimed. When I visited for the 4th of July, their apartment looked like a Best Buy showroom, new TV, upgraded cable package, Emma's gaming setup that cost more than I made in a good month. Meanwhile, I was eating ramen and cancelling my own streaming subscriptions to ensure their lights stayed on. Nice TV, I commented, trying to keep the edge out of my voice. Oh, that, Mom waved dismissively. Store credit from returning some things. Practically free. Everything was always practically free, or such a good deal, or basically nothing. The mental gymnastics they performed to justify spending money they didn't have while taking mine would have been impressive if it wasn't so infuriating. The family dinner was the usual performance. Richard held court about the injustices of the job market, how nobody wanted to hire experienced professionals anymore. Emma complained about her manager at the mall, the unfair scheduling, the toxic work environment that seemed to follow her from job to job. At least Ally doesn't have to deal with real workplace drama, Emma said, scrolling through her phone. Must be nice to just make bracelets all day. It's more than bracelets, I said quietly. I run a business. I handle inventory, marketing, customer service, shipping. Richard laughed. Actually laughed. Come on, Ally. It's not like you're managing a corporation. You sell crafts to housewives. Those housewives paid your rent for the last 4 months. The silence that followed was deafening. Mom's fork clattered against her plate. Emma's eyes widened, her thumb frozen mid-scroll. Richard's face went through several shades of red before settling on purple. We didn't ask for your help, he said, his voice dangerously low. You literally did, multiple times. I have the texts. Family helps family, Mom interjected, her peacemaker voice in full effect. We are all just doing our best here. Are you? The question escaped before I could stop it. Because from where I'm sitting, I'm the only one doing it. I'm subsidizing your entire lifestyle, while you mock how I make my money. Emma slammed her phone down. Oh my God, here she goes. Saint Ali the Martyr. Nobody forced you to give us money. Forced? No. Guilt, manipulated, emotionally blackmailed. Absolutely. How dare you? Mom gasped. After everything we've done for you. What? What have you done for me? Mom, please enlighten me, because I paid my own way through college. I've been financially independent since 22, and I've never asked you for a dime. Meanwhile, I've given you thousands. Money isn't everything, Richard interrupted. Family is about more than keeping score. You're right. It's also about respect, support, not calling someone's career a hobby while cashing their checks. I stood up, my appetite gone. I'm done. No more money. Not for rent, utilities, nothing. You need to figure it out. Mom started crying. Of course, she did. Emma muttered something about me being toxic. Richard just stared at me with a contempt that finally matched his true feelings. As I grabbed my purse, Mom followed me to the door. Eli, please don't leave like this. We're family. That's the problem. Mom, you think family is a magic word that excuses everything. It doesn't. I drove home with my hands shaking on the wheel, equal parts proud of myself and terrified of what I had just done. My phone buzzed incessantly. Texts I didn't read. Calls I didn't answer. For the first time in years, I'd drawn a boundary. I should have known they wouldn't respect it. The next morning, I woke to 53 missed calls and a tsunami of texts, ranging from apologetic to accusatory to outright threatening. The family group chat was a masterclass in manipulation. Mom playing victim. Emma calling me selfish. Richard somehow making it about his pride as a provider. But I held firm. Days passed. The calls slowed. I started to believe maybe they'd actually figure it out, find other solutions. Take responsibility. I was naive. The explosion was coming. I just didn't know it would come in the form of a fist. The family reunion was Mom's idea. Though I suspected Richard was the puppeteer pulling her strings. Labor Day weekend at Aunt Martha's house, neutral territory, where they could corner me with an audience. Please come, Mom had pleaded over the phone. Everyone's asking about you, and Martha really wants to see your jewelry. Maybe you could even bring some pieces to show. I should have trusted my instincts, but the part of me that still craved family connection won out. I packed a small display case with my best work, delicate silver necklaces, hand-stamped bracelets, custom earrings that had been featured in a regional magazine. Maybe if they saw the quality, the craftsmanship, they'd finally understand this wasn't just a hobby. The gathering was typical, cousins comparing salaries, aunts gossiping about divorces, uncles arguing politics over beer. I set up my display on a corner table, hoping to avoid the main chaos. Oh, how cute, cousin Jennifer cooed, fingering a necklace. Do you sell these at flea markets? Actually, I have an online store. I ship internationally. That's so fun. Like a little side hustle. Maybe I should start something crafty, too. How hard can it be, right? Before I could respond, Richard's voice boomed across the room. Hey everyone, come see what Ali's been up to. Our little entrepreneur here thinks she's the next Martha Stewart. A crowd gathered, and my stomach sank. This wasn't interest, it was entertainment. Tell them about your business model, Ali, Richard said, using air quotes. How you quit a real job to play with beads. I didn't quit. I was laid off and I pivoted to something I'd already built. She sells to housewives on the internet, Emma interrupted, appearing with a plate piled high with food I'd probably end up paying for somehow. Mostly older women, who don't know they can get the same stuff cheaper on Amazon. That's not, but Richard wasn't done. The best part, he said, warming to his audience, is she acts like she's some big CEO, has business meetings at Starbucks, calls packaging orders fulfillment operations. It's adorable. The laughter that rippled through the group felt like individual slaps. Aunt Martha tried to be kind, purchasing a bracelet and complimenting the sweet hobby, but the damage was done. My carefully curated display became a prop in their comedy show. You know what the real joke is? I heard myself saying, my voice cutting through their amusement. The real joke is that my little hobby has been supporting 3 grown adults who can't manage their own finances. The laughter died instantly. Ali, Mom warned, but I was beyond caring. This fake business paid their rent for 5 months straight. These cheap trinkets kept their lights on. But sure, keep laughing. It's hilarious how the family disappointment is also the family bank. Uncle Pete whistled low. Is that true, Richard? You're taking money from her. Richard's face contorted. Family helps family. Not that it's any of your business. Funny how family helps family only goes one direction, I shot back. When's the last time any of you helped me? Bought from my shop. Shared my posts. Even just said good job without adding but. Emma muttered, but I caught the way she wouldn't meet anyone's eyes. You want to see drama? I pulled out my phone, opening my banking app. $37,000. That's what I've given this family over 5 years. Not loans, gifts, while being told my work isn't real, my success doesn't count, and I should be grateful they even acknowledge me. The silence was deafening. Aunt Martha clutched her pearls. Cousins exchanged glances. Richard's hands clenched into fists. You ungrateful little, he started, stepping forward. But Uncle Pete intervened. Maybe we should all cool down, Pete suggested, ever the peacemaker. I packed up my display with shaking hands. No need. I'm leaving. Always the victim, Emma called after me. God, ally, you're so toxic. No wonder you don't have a real relationship. That stopped me cold. I turned back, meeting her smirk with years of suppressed fury. You're 21 years old, living rent-free, working 15 hours a week, with a car I helped buy and clothes paid for with money I earned from my fake job. But I'm the toxic one. At least I don't throw my money in people's faces. No, you just take it and spit in mine. Mom was crying again, wasn't she? And Richard had turned an alarming shade of purple. The extended family watched like it was a reality show, probably already texting friends about the drama. You know what? I addressed the room. You all think this is funny. Great. Remember that when they come asking you for money, because the Bank of Ally is officially closed. I made it to my car before the tears came. Hot, angry tears that blurred my vision as I drove away from what might be my last family gathering. My phone exploded with messages I didn't read, voicemails I'd delete unheard. The next few days were a blow of work, the only constant in my life that didn't disappoint me. Orders to fill, customers to thank, new designs to perfect. I lost myself in the rhythm of creation, trying to forget the humiliation of being laughed at by people who supposedly loved me. Then came the group text that changed everything. It was a photo from Emma's Instagram, screenshots sent by a cousin who thought I should see it. There I was, bent over my work, captioned, when you think you're a girl boss, but you're really just a girl lost. Hashtag craft fail, hashtag get a real job, hashtag family disappointment. The comments were worse. Friends of hers mocking my Etsy aesthetic. Richard adding laughing emojis. Even Mom liking the post. The betrayal cut deeper than any insult at the reunion. But the final straw was the GoFundMe. Help the Walkers stay housed. The campaign read, shared across their social media. The description painted them as victims of the economy, dealing with unemployment and disability, just trying to keep their family together. No mention of the thousands I'd given them. No mention of Richard's golf membership, or Emma's shopping sprees. The goal, $5,000. The comments were full of sympathy and small donations from friends and distant relatives, who had no idea they'd been bleeding me dry for months. Shameless, I muttered, screenshotting everything. Something dark and determined settled in my chest. They wanted to paint me as the villain. Fine. But I wouldn't be their victim anymore. I started documenting everything, bank statements, text messages, the paper trail of their exploitation. Not for revenge, not yet, but for protection. Because I knew them, this wouldn't end with a GoFundMe. They'd escalate, push boundaries, test how far they could go. I was right. The next boundary they'd cross wouldn't be financial. It would be physical. But that night, staring at their fundraiser climbing toward its goal while my own account sat depleted from supporting them, I made a decision. If they wanted to make our private family business public, if they wanted to humiliate me for entertainment, if they wanted to bite the hand that fed them, then I'd show them what those hands were truly capable of. I opened a new document on my computer and began typing the real story of the Walker family GoFundMe. Every receipt, every text, every broken promise. I didn't publish it, not yet. But having it ready, knowing I could defend myself with truth instead of tears, felt like power. The kind of power that comes not from crafting jewelry, but from finally crafting boundaries. They'd pushed me to this point. What came next would be on them. The text from Emma came at 2 a.m. on a Wednesday, 3 weeks after the reunion disaster. Hey sis, know you're mad, but I really need your help. Found the perfect car, and they'll approve me if you co-sign. Please, it's a really good deal and I'll make all the payments, I swear. I stared at my phone in disbelief. After everything, the mockery, the Instagram post, the GoFundMe, she had the audacity to ask me to put my credit on the line. I typed and deleted a dozen responses before settling on no. The barrage started immediately. Wow, you're really going to be petty. It's not even asking for money, just your signature. I literally need a car for work. Mom said you would help if I asked nicely. Fine. Beer. I blocked her number and went back to sleep. The next morning, Mom called from Richard's phone. Ally, don't hang up. Emma's crying. She showed me your messages. She asked me to co-sign for a car. Mom, after publicly humiliating me online, she's young. She didn't mean those things. And she does need reliable transportation. Then she can save up and buy what she can afford, like the rest of us. You're being cruel. One signature, that's all. It won't cost you anything. I laughed. Actually laughed. Won't cost me anything when she defaults. And we both know she will. It'll destroy my credit. The credit I need for my business. The business you all think is a joke. No one thinks that, Mom. She literally hashtagged me as #family disappointment. Richard called my work a hobby for bored housewives in front of 30 people. You liked her post mocking me, so no, I won't co-sign. Not for a car. Not for anything. The silence stretched before she played her trump card. Your father would be so disappointed in how selfish you've become. I hung up. 2 days later, Richard started his campaign. Professional manipulation from someone who'd had years to perfect his craft. The first email was almost corporate in its tone. Ally, I hope this finds you well. I wanted to reach out regarding a misunderstanding about Emma's transportation situation. As you know, reliable transport is essential for maintaining employment. I deleted it unread. The voicemails escalated. Just calling to discuss this like adults. You're being unnecessarily difficult. This vindictive behavior is really beneath you. Answer your phone, Ally. Then came the financial emergency, because there's always a financial emergency. Mom called from her own phone this time, hysterical. The power company is here. They are shutting everything off. Richard's insulin needs refrigeration. Please, Ally, just this once. Call the GoFundMe donors, I suggested. You raised almost $4,000 for keeping your family housed. Surely that covers utilities. That money is for, we can't. It's already allocated. Then deallocate it, or admit publicly that you scammed people. She gasped like I'd slapped her. How dare you accuse us of? I have screenshots, Mom, of Emma's shopping hauls posted the day after the fundraiser went live, of Richard at Topgolf last weekend. Want me to share those with your donors? The power stayed on. Funny how they found the money when properly motivated. But the real escalation came the following Friday. I was working late, fulfilling a large wholesale order, when the doorbell rang at 10 p.m. Through the peephole, I saw Richard. Open the door, ally. We need to talk. We have nothing to talk about. Please leave. I'm not going anywhere until you hear me out. I should have called the police then. Instead, I cracked the door, the chain still on. You have 2 minutes. His face was flushed, and I could smell beer. You ungrateful little, after everything we've done for you. Done what? I raised you like my own daughter. You met me when I was 15. I was already raised, and you've taken more from me than you ever gave. Money, he spat. Always about money with you. Says the man standing at my door at 10 p.m. Because I won't give him more of it. We need you to co-sign for Emma's car. No. It's not a request. It's not happening. Leave before I call the police. You won't call. You're going to log into your computer right now and fix this mess you've created. The mess I created. You mean holding you accountable for your own finances. His fist slammed against the door frame, making me jump. You owe us. I owe you nothing. I've paid tens of thousands. You owe us respect. Gratitude. Family loyalty. Respect is earned. Gratitude goes both ways. And family loyalty doesn't mean being a doormat. You little, he shoved against the door, but the chain held. Open this door. I already had my phone out, 911 dialed but not yet called. Leave now, or I call the police. Your choice. He stared at me through the gap, and I saw something dark in his eyes. Something that should have scared me more than it did. This isn't over. Yes, it is. Don't come here again. He left, but not before kicking my door hard enough to crack the frame. I called my landlord the next morning, then a locksmith, and then invested in a security camera. The expense hurt money I'd earmarked for new equipment, but safety mattered more. The weekend brought a new tactic, public shaming. They turned the GoFundMe into a sob story about being abandoned by family. Emma posted crying selfies with captions about toxic siblings and chosen family versus blood. Mom shared articles about elder abuse, tagging me in each one. Their flying monkeys arrived in my DMS and email. How could you abandon your family? Your mother is heartbroken. Emma just needs a car. Why are you being so difficult? Family helps family. What's wrong with you? I crafted a single response, copy-pasted to each. I financially supported them for 5 years. They are adults who refuse to work or budget. I'm done enabling them. Some understood. Most didn't. I lost followers, received 1-star reviews from people who'd never bought from me, and had distant relatives block me. The court of public opinion had ruled, and I was guilty of the ultimate sin, saying no. But something interesting happened, too. My story resonated with others. Messages started coming in, going through the same thing with my brother. Your story gave me courage to cut off my toxic mom. Thank you for sharing this. I thought I was alone. I wasn't alone. There were dozens of us, hundreds maybe, who'd been designated the family ATM and treated like dirt for the privilege. We found each other in comment sections and support groups, sharing stories of manipulation disguised as love. Meanwhile, my family's campaign intensified. They tried everything: guilt, anger, public humiliation, private threats. Richard drove by my apartment at odd hours. Emma created fake accounts to leave bad reviews. Mom sent letters about her failing health and broken heart, but I held firm. No money, no co-signing, no contact unless they could treat me with basic respect. The extinction burst was coming, that final desperate escalation abusers use, when their usual tactics fail. I could feel it building like storm pressure. They tried everything except actual accountability, and we all knew that would never come. I should have been more prepared. I should have known that when narcissists lose control, they lash out. I should have realized that Richard's "this isn't over" wasn't just an empty threat. But I was tired. Tired of being afraid. Tired of being used. Tired of being the only adult in a family of perpetual victims. So I continued my life, filling orders, growing my business, healing from years of financial abuse. The confrontation, when it came, would be violent, but it would also be their biggest mistake. Because what they didn't know was that I'd been documenting everything, building a case that would destroy their carefully crafted victim narrative. They thought they were entitled to my money, my credit, my life. They were about to learn exactly how wrong they were. The meeting was Mom's idea, orchestrated with all the manipulation she'd perfected over the years. A text on a Thursday morning, casual as could be. "Hi, sweetie. I'm in your neighborhood for a doctor's appointment. Can I stop by for coffee? Just me. I promise." I should have known better. Should have recognized the setup, but 6 weeks of no contact had worn me down. And part of me, the stupid hopeful part, thought maybe she'd finally understood. 15 minutes, I texted back. "I have orders to ship by noon." She arrived with a Starbucks peace offering, my favorite drink order memorized from years of morning runs. We sat at my small kitchen table, the same one where I packaged orders, and for a moment it felt almost normal. "Your apartment looks nice," she said, glancing around at my organized workspace. "Business must be good." "It is. Just landed another wholesale account." "That's wonderful, honey." She sipped her coffee, and I watched her gather courage for whatever she'd really come to say. "I've been thinking a lot about our situation." "There's no situation, Mom. I set boundaries. You can either respect them or not." "I know. I know. And you're right. We've been," she paused, choosing words carefully. "We haven't been fair to you. Richard, especially. He's under so much stress with the job search. And Emma, well, she's young. She's 21. I was supporting myself at that age. You were always special, ally. Responsible. Maybe we relied on that too much." The admission surprised me. "Maybe. Definitely. I see that now. And I want to fix things between us. I miss my daughter. I miss you too, Mom. But I can't go back to how things were. The money, the disrespect, the constant emergencies, I understand. Really, that's actually why I'm here." She reached into her purse, pulling out an envelope. "Richard and I want to repay you. Not everything. Not yet. But it's a start." I stared at the envelope like it might bite me. "What's the catch?" "No catch. We used some of the GoFundMe money." She held up a hand as I started to protest. I know, but isn't this what you wanted for us to use it responsibly?" I picked up the envelope, finding a check for $2,000. Not insignificant, but a fraction of what they owed. Still, it was something. "This is a good start," I admitted carefully. "But money isn't the only issue. The way you all treat me, mock my work, that stops now. I promise. Richard knows. He crossed a line coming here that night. He's been going to anger management." "Really?" Court ordered, but still. And Emma, she's deleted those posts. She wants to apologize. When you're ready. I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to believe that my family could change. Could see me as more than a wallet with feelings. I need time to think about it. Of course. Take all the time you need. She stood, pausing at the door. I love you, Ally. We all do. We just forgot how to show it properly. After she left, I stared at the check for a long time. It felt like hope and a trap all at once. I deposited it through my phone app, half expecting it to bounce. It didn't. A week passed, then two. The check cleared. No manipulative texts came through, and I started to wonder if maybe, just maybe, they were actually trying. The invitation came via email, formal, almost businesslike. Ally, we'd like to invite you to dinner this Sunday. Just family. Richard wants to apologize in person. And Emma has something she'd like to say. No pressure, no agenda, just dinner and conversation. Love, Mom. I agonized over it for days. My therapist, yes, I'd finally started therapy, encouraged me to consider it with caution. Change is possible, she said, but it takes time and consistent effort. One dinner doesn't fix years of dysfunction. Still, I went, wore my best outfit, not to impress them, but to remind myself of who I'd become, successful, independent, strong. The house looked different when I arrived, cleaner. The new TV was gone, replaced by their old one. The dining table was set with Mom's good china, the kind she only used for special occasions. Ally. Emma actually hugged me, awkward and quick, but genuine. Thanks for coming. Richard stood by the kitchen, looking uncomfortable. Ally, good to see you. Dinner started well enough. Normal conversation about weather, sports, anything but the elephant in the room. The food was good. Mom had made all my favorites. It felt like an apology in casserole form. Finally, Richard cleared his throat. I owe you an apology. Several, actually. I've been, well, there's no excuse for how I've treated you. The things I said, coming to your apartment, it was wrong. I nodded, waiting. And I'm sorry. Truly, you've been nothing but generous. And I threw it in your face. That's on me. Thank you for saying that, I managed, though something felt off. Rehearsed, maybe too smooth. Emma chimed in next. I'm sorry, too. The Instagram stuff was mean, girl, you're actually killing it with your business, and I was just jealous. Jealous? Yeah, you're like actually independent and successful. I'm still figuring out what I want to do. The apologies continued through dessert. They sounded right, hit all the appropriate notes, but something nagged at me. Maybe it was how Richard kept checking his phone, or how Mom's smile never quite reached her eyes. Then Richard made his move. So, Ally, now that we are all good. Red flag. Emma found a great opportunity. There's this coding boot camp, really prestigious, almost guaranteed job placement after. It's just, Emma jumped in. It's kind of expensive, but it's an investment, you know, in my future. How expensive? I asked, though I already knew where this was going. $15,000. But they have payment plans, and with your credit, I stood up so fast my chair scraped against the floor. Are you kidding me? Language. Mom scolded automatically. Language. You butter me up for 3 weeks. Fake apologies. Fake remorse. All to hit me up for $15,000. It's not like that, Richard started. It's exactly like that. God, you people are unbelievable. I actually thought, I laughed, bitter and sharp. I thought you might have changed. That maybe you saw me as more than a credit score to exploit. You're overreacting, Richard said, standing too. We are trying to invest in Emma's future. With my credit. It's always my money, my credit, my problem to solve. Family helps. Family helps family. I screamed. You keep saying that like it's some magic spell that makes your entitlement okay. Where's my help? Where's my family when I need them? You don't need us, Emma muttered. You made that very clear. I needed parents who saw my success as something to celebrate, not exploit. I needed a sister who didn't publicly humiliate me for laughs. I needed a family that valued me for more than my bank account. But I guess that was too much to ask. Richard's facade finally cracked. We gave you a home. I was 15, living with my mother. You didn't give me anything. Ungrateful. You want to talk ungrateful? How about taking $37,000 from someone while mocking their career? How about, that's when he snapped. Maybe it was my tone, or the truth finally being spoken out loud, or just his bruised ego. But Richard crossed the room in 2 strides, and before I could react, his palm connected with my face. The sound echoed in the sudden silence. My cheek blazed with pain and shock. Emma gasped. Mom froze. You hit me, I said, my voice eerily calm. You actually hit me. Richard's face cycled through emotions, anger, shock, what might have been regret. You were hysterical. I was telling the truth. I touched my cheek, already feeling it swell. And you hit me for it. Ally, he didn't mean, Mom started. Don't, I held up a hand. Don't you dare make excuses for him. Not this time. I grabbed my purse, headed for the door. Where are you going? Emma called out. First, the emergency room to document this, then the police station. You wouldn't, Richard said, but fear crept into his voice. Watch me. I turned at the door, meeting each of their eyes. The check Mom gave me. I'd photocopied it. Every text asking for money saved, every bank transfer documented, and now assault. You just gave me everything I need. For what? Mom whispered. You'll see. As I drove to the hospital, my cheek throbbing and tears finally falling, I knew something had fundamentally shifted. They'd crossed the final line. There was no going back now. The girl who'd quietly handed over money for years was gone. In her place was someone harder, angrier, and infinitely more dangerous to their carefully constructed victim narrative. They wanted war. They were about to get it. The emergency room nurse was gentle but thorough. How did this happen, hun? My stepfather hit me, I said clearly, watching her document every word. During an argument about money, she took photos from multiple angles. The harsh hospital lighting made the swelling look even worse. My cheek had bloomed into an angry purple red, his handprint still visible. The doctor confirmed no fractures, but noted significant soft tissue trauma. You'll want to file a police report, she said quietly, handing me an ice pack. We can call them here if you'd like. I nodded. While waiting, I called my friend Sarah, a paralegal who'd been following my family drama with growing concern. I need you to meet me at the police station and bring your camera. The officers who responded were professional, but clearly skeptical. Domestic disputes were messy. Family violence even more so. But I came prepared. I have documentation, I told them, pulling out the folder I'd started keeping in my car. Financial abuse spanning 5 years. Text messages showing a pattern of harassment, and now physical assault. They perked up at the organization. This wasn't a hysteric family member. This was someone who'd been building a case. My phone buzzed incessantly as I gave my statement. Mom, Richard, Emma, unknown numbers that were probably extended family. I let them all go to voicemail. The detective assigned to my case, a woman named Martinez with kind eyes and steel in her voice, reviewed everything carefully. This level of documentation is unusual. Have you been planning legal action? I've been protecting myself, I corrected. They escalated. I just responded. She nodded, understanding more than I'd said. We'll need to interview them. With this evidence and the hospital documentation, we have enough for assault charges. Do you want to pursue this? Yes. That single word felt like shedding 1,000-pound weight. Sarah met me at the station with her good camera and a fierce hug. Let me see, she demanded, then whistled low at my face. That bastard. Okay, we're documenting everything. Social media, local news if you're comfortable. I want everyone to know, I said, surprising myself with the vehemence. They put our business on social media, made me the villain. Time to show who they really are. We spent the next hour taking photos and crafting a post. Not dramatic or vindictive, just truthful, my swollen face, the hospital bracelet, the police report number. The caption was simple, for 5 years, I financially supported my family while they mocked my career, and treated me like an ATM. Tonight, when I refused to co-sign a $15,000 loan, my stepfather hit me. This is what family helps family really looked like in my house. I'm done being silent. I tagged their GoFundMe. Tagged everyone who'd called me selfish. Tagged the truth. The post went live as I sat in my car, still in the police station parking lot. Within minutes, the shares started, the comments, the sudden overwhelming support from people who'd lived similar stories. My phone rang. Mom? I almost didn't answer, then decided I wanted to hear her excuses. How could you? She was sobbing, but it sounded different. Angry tears, not sad ones. You're destroying our lives over one mistake. One mistake. Which one? Mom? Taking my money. Mocking my career. Watching him hit me and doing nothing. I was in shock. You would have made excuses, like you always do. Like you're doing now. Take it down, ally. Please. Richard's boss might see. Richard doesn't have a boss. Hasn't for months. Or did you forget that lie? Silence, then quieter. The police were here. They took him. Good. And Emma's hysterical. The whole neighborhood saw. How could you humiliate us like this? I posted the truth. If that humiliates you, maybe examine why. You're ruining everything over what? Money. Pride. Over self-respect. Something you taught me I didn't deserve. She was building to something. I could feel it. The final manipulation. The last card to play. Your father would be ashamed, she whispered. I laughed. Actually laughed. My father. The man who left you because you chose Richard over his concerns about how he treated me. That father. She gasped. We'd never spoken about the real reason Dad left. Yeah, Mom. I know. Dad told me everything before he died, how he saw Richard's temper, his manipulation, how he begged you to protect me, how you chose Richard instead. It's exactly what happened. And now, 14 years later, you're still choosing him. Even after he hit your daughter. A lie, please, I'm done. Don't contact me again unless it's through lawyers. I hung up and blocked her number, then Richard's, then Emma's. The flying monkeys would come, but I'd deal with them as needed. Sarah had been monitoring the post while I talked. Ally, you need to see this. The engagement was staggering. Hundreds of comments, thousands of shares. But what caught my attention were the messages, women sharing their stories, men talking about financial abuse they'd suffered, a reporter from the local news asking for an interview. Holy, I breathed. You struck a nerve. This is bigger than your family now. She was right. Over the next 24 hours, my story exploded across social media. The GoFundMe was mass reported and taken down. People found Emma's mocking posts. Richard's golf club photos while claiming unemployment. The narrative they'd carefully built crumbled under scrutiny. But the real vindication came from an unexpected source. Ally, this is Janet from the Craft Boutique on Main. I saw your post. I want to talk to you about something. Janet owned one of the most successful boutiques in the city. I had no idea what you were dealing with, she continued. The strength it takes to build a business while supporting toxic family. That's the kind of story our customers connect with. I want to feature your entire line. Exclusive contract if you're interested. I sat down hard, phone shaking in my hand. Yes. Yes, absolutely. And Ally, I have connections at the Lifestyle magazine. They are always looking for inspiring female entrepreneur stories. Interested? The irony was staggering. My family's attempt to humiliate me into compliance had instead launched my career to levels I'd only dreamed of. More calls came. Boutique owners who'd seen the post, customers wanting to support a small business owner who'd overcome adversity, other craftspeople reaching out in solidarity. 3 days after Richard hit me, I sat in my apartment surrounded by order forms, interview requests, and wholesale contracts. My face still hurt, but my heart felt lighter than it had in years. The doorbell rang, and I checked the camera app before answering. Process server. Ally Grant, you're being served. I took the papers, already knowing what they'd say. Richard was suing me for defamation. They were also seeking a restraining order, claiming I was harassing them. I photographed every page and sent them to the lawyer Sarah had recommended. They are actually suing me, I told him over the phone. He laughed. With what grounds? You posted factual information with evidence. They are panicking. This is good. But it means they are scared. Scared was right. The family that had wielded guilt and manipulation like weapons was learning what happened when their target fought back with truth. But I wasn't done. Not yet. I want to countersue, I told him. For the assault, yes, but also for the financial abuse. Every penny they took under false pretenses. That's harder to prove. I have 5 years of documentation. Text messages where they admit they didn't need the money. Social media posts showing spending while claiming poverty. Bank records of every transfer. He whistled low. Send me everything. This could be interesting. As I gathered my evidence, my phone buzzed with a notification. Emma had made a new post, this time on TikTok. She was crying prettily, claiming I'd ruined their lives over a misunderstanding. The comments weren't buying it. I smiled grimly. They'd taught me well how to document, how to fight, how to survive. They just never expected me to use those lessons against them. The war they'd started was far from over, but for the first time, I was winning. The call from the local news came while I was packaging orders, my hands steady despite everything, finding comfort in the familiar rhythm of tissue paper and thank you cards. Ms. Grant, this is Rebecca Chen from Channel 7. We've been following your story online, and we'd like to offer you an opportunity to share it with our viewers. I paused, considering. The social media attention was one thing, but television, that was another level entirely. What kind of segment? A feature on financial abuse within families. You wouldn't be alone. We found 3 other women with similar stories, but yours has resonated the most: the documentation, the business angle, the resilience. It's powerful. Can I think about it? Of course. But Ally, your family is already spinning their narrative. Emma's TikTok is gaining traction with a certain audience. Don't let them control the story. She was right. Emma's "My sister destroyed our family" videos were multiplying, each more dramatic than the last. She'd even started a new GoFundMe. Help us rebuild after family betrayal, though it was struggling to gain traction. I'll do it, I decided. When? Tomorrow afternoon, if possible. We want to move while the story is still fresh. That evening, I prepared carefully, not what to say. The truth didn't need rehearsal, but how to present myself. Professional blazer over a shirt that wouldn't clash with my still healing bruise. Minimal makeup, except to ensure the damage remained visible. Evidence organized in a leather portfolio. Sarah came over to help prep. Remember, you're not trying to destroy them. You're sharing your truth to help others. I know, but part of me. I trailed off. Wants revenge. Wants justice. There's a difference. She squeezed my hand. There is, and you're about to get it. The next morning brought a flurry of panicked texts from unknown numbers, family, friends, distant cousins, people I hadn't heard from in years. This has gone too far. Think of your mother's health. Family business should stay private. You're going to regret this. I archived them all. Evidence for the harassment file. The new studio was smaller than I'd expected, but the interviewer, Marcus Williams, immediately put me at ease. We are not here for sensationalism, he assured me. This is about shining light on a real problem. Just tell your truth. The cameras rolled, and I found my voice clear, steady, factual. I showed the bank statements, numbers blurred, but patterns clear, the text messages demanding money while belittling my work, the photos from the hospital. The hardest part, I said, looking directly at the camera, was realizing that their love was conditional. As long as I was useful, as long as I paid their bills, I was family. The moment I set boundaries, I became the enemy. Marcus leaned forward. Your stepfather has been charged with assault. Your family is claiming this is retaliation. How do you respond? With facts. This isn't retaliation. It's consequence. For 5 years, I subsidized their lifestyle while being told my work wasn't real. I have every right to speak about my experience, especially when they put our family business on social media first. What about those who say you should have kept this private, handled it within the family? I tried that for years. Silence protected them, not me. And I know I'm not alone. Financial abuse within families is epidemic. But we don't talk about it because of this misguided loyalty. How many people watching right now are in the same situation, guilt-tripped into poverty by relatives who refuse to take responsibility? The interview lasted 40 minutes, though they'd edited it down to 10. As we wrapped, Marcus shook my hand. That was powerful. You're going to help a lot of people. I drove home feeling lighter but weary. The calm before the storm. The segment aired that evening. I watched alone, cringing at seeing myself on screen, but proud of how composed I appeared. The story was fair, focusing on the broader issue while using my experience as illustration. Then my phone exploded. Orders flooded my website, so many I had to temporarily disable new purchases. Messages of support, shared stories, thank yous from strangers who saw themselves in my words, journalists requesting follow-ups, boutiques wanting partnerships. But the backlash came too. Emma posted a response video within hours. She dressed in her most conservative outfit, makeup carefully applied to look natural while still being flattering. The performance was Oscar-worthy. "I can't believe I have to defend my family like this," she began, tears perfectly timed. "My sister, sorry. Former sister, has taken a family disagreement and turned it into a witch hunt. Yes, we struggled financially. Yes, we asked for help, but we're family. That used to mean something. She painted me as calculating. Claimed I'd documented everything with the intent to go viral. Suggested I'd provoked Richard into losing his temper." The comment section became a battlefield between people who saw through her act and those who bought the ungrateful daughter narrative. Mom went a different route. She called my elderly aunts, my dad's sisters, who I still talk to occasionally, spinning tales of my mental breakdown and attention-seeking behavior. One aunt called me, confused and concerned. "She says you've been unstable since your father died," Aunt Helen said carefully. "That this is all some delayed grief reaction." "Aunt Helen, I have 5 years of bank records showing I gave them $37,000. Does that sound like grief or exploitation?" The silence stretched. "Then, send me the records. I want to see for myself." I did. An hour later, she called back, fury replacing concern. "That lying witch. She told everyone you were struggling, that they were helping you. I'm calling every relative she's poisoned against you." The family fracture widened, but I found unexpected allies. Cousins who'd been hit up for money and refused. Uncles who'd watched Richard's temper with concern. Family friends who'd noticed the designer goods despite claims of poverty. But the real shock came 3 days later. A woman named Diane contacted me through my business page. "You don't know me, but I know your stepfather. I was married to him 15 years ago. I saw your interview." My hands shook as I called her. "He did the same thing to me," she said without preamble. "My family had money, inheritance from my grandmother. He was charming at first. Then the requests started. Small things, then bigger. When I finally said no, she paused. Well, let's just say your story felt very familiar. Did you press charges?" "I tried, but I didn't have your documentation." He convinced everyone I was crazy. Bitter about the divorce. I lost my family, my money, my reputation. But you have evidence. You have a chance to stop him. We talked for 2 hours. She sent me court documents, old police reports, photos of her own bruises, a pattern spanning decades. "Can I share this with my lawyer?" I asked. "Please do. An ally, don't back down. Not for guilt, not for family, not for anything. Men like Richard don't change. They just find new victims." I hung up, energized and terrified. This was bigger than family drama or money. This was about a predator who'd perfected his craft over decades. My lawyer was ecstatic. This establishes pattern behavior. Their defamation suit is dead in the water. And our countersuit just got teeth. The news spread through the family grapevine at light speed. Richard's past coming back to haunt him. Other victims potentially coming forward. Mom called from a friend's phone. Hysterical. "How could you?" Dragging up ancient history, ruining our lives. He ruined Diane's life. He tried to ruin mine. How many others? Mom, how many women has he done this to while you enabled him? That's different. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. You knew. You've always known what he is, and you chose him anyway. Just like you chose him over Dad. Just like you chose him over me. I'm your mother. No, I said quietly. You're his wife. That's all you've been for 14 years. She hung up on me, but I felt no satisfaction. Only sadness for the mother I'd never really had. The interview requests kept coming, podcasts about financial abuse, women's magazines wanting my story, a publisher interested in a book deal. My business exploded back. Orders would take months to fulfill, even with the 2 assistants I'd hired. Success, it turned out, was the best revenge, but justice was still in progress. The court date for Richard's assault charge was set. The countersuit was filed, and somewhere in the city, my family was learning what happened when you push someone too far. They'd wanted me silent, compliant, forever their personal ATM. Instead, they'd created their worst nightmare, a woman with receipts, a platform, and absolutely nothing left to lose. The war wasn't over, but the tide had definitively turned. The registered letter arrived on a Tuesday morning, requiring my signature. The return address made my heart skip, their landlord's property management company. Inside, a formal notice requesting my presence at a tenant meeting regarding the lease at my family's address. My name was listed as a co-signer. I called my lawyer immediately. Can they do this? Force me into a meeting? They are not forcing anything, he explained. But this is interesting. If you're on the lease as a guarantor, you have certain rights. When did you sign this? I thought back. 3 years ago. Mom begged me. Said it was just a formality, that their credit was temporarily bad. And you've been paying their rent for 5 months straight, plus multiple other times. Then you might have more leverage than you think. Attend the meeting, but bring me. The meeting was scheduled for Friday afternoon at the property management office. I arrived with my lawyer, David Park, to find the landlord, a stern woman named Patricia, already seated. No sign of my family yet. Ms. Grant, thank you for coming, Patricia began. We've been made aware of the situation with the Walker family, specifically the ongoing legal issues, and the fact that you've been making their rent payments. Where are they? I asked. They were invited but declined to attend. They've retained their own counsel. David leaned forward. What's this about? Patricia pulled out a thick folder. The Walkers are 4 months behind on rent. That's impossible, I said. You paid 5 months of rent. Yes, but that was for January through May. They haven't paid June through September. They told us you would be handling it. The room spun. They told you what? We have emails. She showed us printouts. Richard writing that I was managing the family finances, and to direct all correspondence to me, using my payments as evidence that I'd assumed responsibility. I stopped paying in May, I said. I told them I was done. They didn't inform us of that, and as co-signer, you're legally liable for the full amount, $8,000, plus late fees. David intervened. My client was fraudulently induced to sign that lease. We are prepared to challenge. I'm not interested in court battles, Patricia interrupted. I want paying tenants or an empty unit. So, here's my proposal. I'll release you from the lease and give them 30 days notice to vacate, or you can pay the back rent and remain liable for future months. Your choice. What happens if I choose the first option? I asked. They'll need to find new housing. Without your credit, they won't qualify for most rentals. I've already run their applications, both unemployed, no savings, previous evictions on Richard's record that they failed to disclose. I stared at the folder, thinking they'd continued spending while letting rent pile up, assuming I'd cave and pay when faced with legal consequences. The con artist's ultimate gamble, betting on my guilt and fear of confrontation. I'll take option 1, I said firmly. Release me from the lease and give them notice. Patricia smiled, sliding documents across the table. I hoped you'd say that. Sign here and you're free. They have 30 days. As David reviewed the paperwork, Patricia leaned in. Off the record, I've been a landlord for 20 years. I've seen every scam, every sob story. What they did to you, stringing you along while destroying your credit, it's disgusting. I'm glad you're getting out. I signed with a steady hand. Free. Finally free. They'll be served notice tomorrow, Patricia confirmed. I'd prepare for backlash. The backlash came within hours of the notice being posted. Somehow, word spread through the family network at light speed. Aunt Martha called first. Ally, your mother is hysterical. They are being evicted. How could you do this? I didn't do anything. They didn't pay rent for 4 months while telling the landlord I would. That's fraud, Aunt Martha. But where will they go? That's their problem to solve. They are adults. You're really going to make your mother homeless? No. Richard's going to make her homeless. He's the one who wrote those emails. He's the one who gambled that I'd pay rather than face legal action. He lost. The calls kept coming. Cousins, family, friends, people I hadn't spoken to in years. All with the same message: family doesn't make family homeless. Emma took to social media again, posting pictures of herself crying in what appeared to be different rooms of their apartment. 30 days to pack up our whole lives because my sister is vindictive. This is what girl boss culture creates. Women who value money over family. The comments were brutal this time. People had done the math. 4 months of rent at $2,400 meant they'd had nearly $10,000 that should have gone to housing. Where had it gone? Someone found Richard's golf club membership posts from those same months. Another discovered Emma's shopping hauls. The narrative crumbled in real time. But the revelation that broke everything wide open came from an unexpected source. A woman named Carol messaged my business page. I work at the casino where your stepfather is a regular. I saw your story. You should check the player club records. I forwarded it to David, who subpoenaed the records for our civil suit. What came back was staggering. Richard had gambled away over $40,000 in the past year, the months I'd paid rent. He'd been at the casino, sometimes dropping thousands in a single night. The job interviews he'd claimed. Casino surveillance showed him at the slots during those exact times. This is it, David said, barely containing his excitement. This proves fraud. They took money under false pretenses while he gambled it away. We are amending the civil suit. This is criminal. I stared at the numbers, feeling sick. He'd literally taken food out of my mouth to feed slot machines, and Mom had known. She had to have known. The amended lawsuit hit them like a tsunami. Criminal fraud charges were recommended by the prosecutor. The IRS was notified about unreported gambling winnings. Adult Protective Services opened an investigation into whether Mom was being financially exploited or was complicit. Their attorney, a public defender, since they couldn't afford representation, reached out about a plea deal. They'd drop their defamation suit, agree to a payment plan for restitution if I'd drop the criminal charges. No deal, I told David. They made their choices. Now they face consequences. With 2 weeks left before eviction, desperation set in. Mom showed up at my apartment building. Caught on security cameras trying every door, looking for a way in. The restraining order was updated to include stalking. Emma tried a different approach, creating a sob story about being an abuse victim herself, claiming Richard had controlled the finances, and she'd had no idea about the gambling. Some people bought it, but her own social media history contradicted her, posts bragging about Daddy's casino luck, and photos from casino restaurants destroyed her innocent act. Then came the family meeting, or rather, the family ambush. Aunt Helen, the one who'd initially supported me, called, "Can you meet me for coffee? I have some information about your mom you need to know." Suspicious but curious, I agreed. When I arrived at the cafe, half my extended family was there. An intervention, Uncle Pete started. "We are worried about you. This vendetta has gone too far." Vendetta. I laughed. They committed fraud. They stole from me. He assaulted me. But I'm the one with a vendetta. You're destroying the family. Cousin Jennifer added, "Your mom might go to jail." Good. Maybe she'll finally face consequences for her choices. How can you be so cold? Aunt Martha demanded. That's your mother. No, I stood, throwing cash on the table for my untouched coffee. That's a woman who chose a gambling addict over her daughter's well-being, who watched him hit me and did nothing. Who helped him defraud me of thousands. She's not my mother. She's his accomplice. Helen caught my arm as I passed. Ally, wait. This isn't what I didn't know they'd all be here. I looked at her, seeing genuine distress. Did you know about the casino? The fraud? Her silence was answer enough. You all knew, I said, addressing the table. You knew what they were doing to me, and you said nothing. That makes you complicit. Every single one of you. I left them sitting in stunned silence. The family that had preached loyalty while watching me be exploited could face their hypocrisy alone. As the eviction date approached, one final manipulation emerged. Mom called from a hospital room, a suicide attempt. The nurse said, pills, just enough to require observation, not enough to cause real damage. I didn't go. Emma attacked me on social media for pushing our mother to attempt suicide. Yet, the chronology didn't fit. Medical records proved she was admitted hours before the eviction notice was served. It was premeditated, a final card to play. The eviction proceeded. They moved in with Richard's elderly mother, spinning stories of persecution. But the truth was spreading. Richard's ex-wife, Diane, had started her own social media campaign, sharing her story. 2 more ex-girlfriends came forward with similar tales. The man who terrorized women for profit was finally exposed, and the family that had enabled him was facing the consequences they'd avoided for years. On moving day, I drove past their old apartment. A small, petty part of me wanted to see them loading boxes, facing the reality they'd created. But the parking lot was empty, except for Patricia's crew, already prepping for new tenants. They'd left in the night, sneaking away like the thieves they were. But they couldn't run from the charges, the civil suit, the IIS. The casinos banned Richard for life after learning about the fraud. Mom's disability claim was investigated for fraud when they discovered the gambling connection. Emma, cut off from resources, had to get a real job. Her social media went dark after a final post about starting fresh. As for me, my business thrived. The publicity, horrible as its origins were, had transformed my hobby into a recognized brand. I moved to a larger apartment with a dedicated studio, hired full-time staff, launched a foundation for financial abuse survivors. Success, it turned out, really was the best revenge. But accountability, that was justice. The restraining order hearing was set for a Thursday morning in October. I arrived early with David, my suit pressed and my evidence organized in color-coded folders across the courtroom. Richard sat with his public defender, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. Mom wasn't there, her lawyer claimed health issues. Judge Patricia Winters reviewed the case with sharp eyes. Ms. Grant, you're seeking to make the temporary restraining order permanent. Yes, Your Honor. The respondent has shown a pattern of escalating behavior despite the criminal charges. David presented our evidence methodically. The surveillance footage of Mom trying to enter my building, screenshots of fake social media accounts created to harass me, voicemails from burner phones even after losing their home. They'd found time and resources to terrorize me. Your Honor, Richard's attorney argued, my client is facing significant hardship. Hardships of his own making. Judge Winters interrupted. I've reviewed the evidence, the assault, the financial fraud, the continued harassment despite existing orders. Mr. Walker, do you have anything to say? Richard stood, and for the first time in my life, I saw him genuinely defeated. I just wanted to talk to her, to make her understand what. The judge asked that family should stick together, that she's destroying everything. Judge Winters leaned forward. Mr. Walker, family doesn't assault family. Family doesn't defraud family. And family certainly doesn't stalk and harass family. The permanent restraining order is granted. You are to have no contact with Ms. Grant for 5 years. This includes direct contact, third-party contact, and social media. Violation will result in immediate arrest. As we left the courthouse, David's phone rang. He listened, his expression shifting to excitement. The prosecutor wants to meet. They are offering Richard a plea deal. The meeting was illuminating. The prosecutor, ADA Jennifer Martinez, laid out their case with brutal efficiency. The gambling records combined with the fraud evidence make this a slam dunk, she explained. But trials are expensive. We are offering 18 months prison, 5 years probation, and full restitution. If he rejects it, we'll pursue the maximum 5 to 7 years. What about my mother? I asked. Harder to prove criminal intent with her, but the civil suit is yours to win. I felt conflicted. Part of me wanted the full trial, the complete public exposure. But 18 months in prison would destroy Richard's facade permanently, and the restitution might actually get paid with wage garnishment during probation. Take the deal, I decided. But I want the restitution enforced aggressively. 2 weeks later, I got word that Richard had accepted the plea. The news hit the family like an earthquake. Prison. Their golden boy provider was going to actual prison. Emma's response was predictable but pathetic. A tearful video claiming I'd sent an innocent man to prison over a misunderstanding. The comments destroyed her. Someone had compiled a timeline of their spending versus their claims of poverty. Another posted the gambling records. Her victim narrative collapsed completely. But it was Mom's reaction that surprised me. She didn't call or try to visit. Instead, she sent a letter through her lawyer. Not an apology that would require accountability, but an offer. My client is willing to sign away any claim to future contact in exchange for dropping the civil suit. David read it. She'll agree to permanent no contact and won't contest the criminal restitution. She's abandoning him. I realized now that he's going to prison, she's cutting her losses. Seems like it. What do you want to do? I thought about the mother who'd chosen Richard over my father, over me, who'd enabled his abuse for years, who'd watched him hit me and done nothing, but who was also possibly a victim herself. Counteroffer. She signs away contact rights, provides a full written statement about the fraud for the criminal case, and pays $20,000 in restitution in exchange for me dropping the civil suit against her specifically. You think she has $20,000? Life insurance from my dad. She never touched it. Said it was for emergencies. Well, this qualifies. The counter was accepted within days. Mom liquidated the policy and paid in full. Her statement to the prosecutors was damning, admitting she knew about the gambling, the lies about job hunting, the manipulation of the GoFundMe. She threw Richard under every available bus to save herself. The family explosion was nuclear. Emma, suddenly truly alone, went from entitled princess to desperate survivor. She posted about needing roommates, selling her designer goods, looking for full-time work. The comments were brutal, but fair, people remembering her mocking others for the same struggles. Then came an unexpected ally. Richard's mother, Ellen, reached out through David. She wants to meet, he told me. Ellen was in her 70s, but sharp with eyes that had seen too much. I failed him, she started without preamble. Spoiled him, made excuses, enabled the behavior that hurt you, but I won't let him hurt anyone else. She pulled out a worn folder. These are records from his youth. Theft from family members, assaulting his sister when she wouldn't lend him money. I paid for therapy, lawyers, made it go away. I thought I was protecting him. I was just creating a monster. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Because at his sentencing, they'll ask about his character. His lawyer will paint him as a first-time offender who made mistakes. That's a lie. You deserve support, and future victims deserve protection. You'd testify against your own son. I'd tell the truth about my son. There's a difference. The sentencing hearing arrived in December. The courtroom was packed, media, family members, curious observers who'd followed the story. Richard in an orange jumpsuit and shackles. He looked nothing like the man who terrorized me. His lawyer tried the expected defense: good man fallen on hard times, economy's victim, momentary lapse in judgment. But then the prosecution called their witnesses. Ellen testified with quiet dignity, outlining decades of Richard's manipulative behavior. Diane, his ex-wife, detailed her own experience with devastating clarity. 2 other women shared their stories of financial exploitation. When my turn came, I spoke not just about the money or the assault, but about the systematic destruction of self-worth. How they'd made me feel guilty for success. How they'd convinced me that family meant accepting abuse. He didn't just steal money. I concluded. He stole 5 years of my life, made me question my worth, my career, my right to boundaries. That's what financial abuse does. It makes you complicit in your own exploitation. Richard's statement was a masterclass in narcissism. He was sorry for the misunderstandings. Sorry that I'd felt hurt. Sorry that the family was suffering. Not one word of actual accountability. Judge Morgan Reeves didn't buy it. Mr. Walker, I've seen many abusers in my courtroom. Most at least pretend remorse. You can't even manage that. You systematically exploited your stepdaughter while denigrating her achievements. When she finally stood up for herself, you assaulted her. You show no insight, no genuine remorse, no recognition of harm caused. I hereby sentence you to 24 months in state prison, followed by 5 years supervised probation with mandatory gambling addiction treatment. You will pay full restitution to Ms. Grant, $37,000 plus interest. You will have no contact with the victim for 10 years following release. The gavel came down with finality. Richard turned as they led him away, meeting my eyes with pure hatred. But behind him, Mom sat alone, finally facing the consequences of her choices. Emma had already fled, unable to face the reality she'd helped create. Outside the courthouse, reporters waited, but I was done being the story. I gave a brief statement about moving forward and declined further questions. It's over, I told David. The criminal part, he agreed. But you've got a business to run, a life to live. He was right. While I'd been fighting for justice, orders had piled up. The boutique contracts needed attention. The foundation I'd started for financial abuse survivors had grant applications waiting. As I drove to my studio, my phone buzzed with messages of support, customers, fellow survivors, strangers who'd found strength in my story. But the one that mattered most was from Aunt Helen. "I'm proud of you. Your father would be too. Welcome to the family you deserve. The one you chose." The family I chose, business partners who respected my work, friends who celebrated my success, customers who valued my creativity, a chosen family built on mutual respect rather than obligation. That evening, I sat in my studio, surrounded by supplies and possibilities. On my desk, the last evidence folder, photos, bank statements, text messages, 5 years of abuse documented in painful detail. I lit a candle and fed each page to the flame, not to forget. The lessons were seared into my soul, but to release, to transform pain into power, victimhood into victory. The last photo was of all of us at some forgotten holiday before the money, the resentment, the violence, when I still believed blood meant loyalty and family meant love. I watched it burn and felt nothing but peace. They'd wanted me to be their financial salvation, while accepting their emotional devastation. Instead, I'd built something they couldn't understand or destroy: self-respect, success, and a life free from their poison. The business they'd mocked now supported 3 employees. The hobby they'd ridiculed had become a brand. The woman they'd tried to break had broken free instead. Tomorrow, Richard would wake up in prison. Mom would face her empty life. Emma would struggle with the independence she'd never wanted. And I would wake up free. The war was over. I'd won everything that mattered, not because I'd destroyed them, but because I'd finally saved myself. 6 months after the sentencing, I stood in my new workshop, a converted warehouse space with soaring ceilings and industrial windows that flooded everything with natural light. 3 full-time employees worked at their stations, filling orders that now came from boutiques across the country. The contrast to my cramped apartment table was staggering. "Package for you," Sarah called out, wheeling in a cart of supplies. She'd left her paralegal job to become my operations manager, turning our friendship into a business partnership that actually worked. The return address on the manila envelope made me pause: the state correctional facility where Richard was serving his sentence. Inside, not a letter from him, but a notice from the prison accounting department: his first restitution payment, automatically deducted from his prison work wages, $43.16. I laughed. Really laughed. At this rate, it would take decades to pay back what he owed. But it wasn't about the money anymore. It was about accountability, measured in small increments, but steady nonetheless. My phone buzzed with a notification from the business Instagram account. Another feature, this time in Entrepreneur magazine, highlighting female-founded businesses that overcame adversity. The article mentioned my story briefly but focused on the work, the craft, the business model that had transformed a side hustle into a 6-figure company. "You need to see this." Marcus, my newest hire, called from his computer. He managed our online presence with an enthusiasm that reminded me why I'd loved this work in the first place. On screen, a familiar face in an unfamiliar setting, Emma, wearing a fast food uniform, had been caught in the background of someone else's TikTok. The comments were identifying her, but without cruelty this time. People noted the humbling transformation from entitled princess to minimum wage worker, with something approaching sympathy. "Leave it," I told Marcus. "That's not our story anymore." Because it wasn't. The revenge portion had ended with Richard in prison and the family scattered. What came next was about building something better from the ashes they'd left behind. The Foundation for Financial Freedom, my non-profit supporting financial abuse survivors, had just received its first major grant. We'd be able to fund legal services for people trying to escape similar situations, provide emergency funds for those cut off from resources, and create educational programs about recognizing financial manipulation within families. During our monthly board meeting, one of the directors, a woman named Grace, who'd escaped her own abusive family situation, presented our impact report. 17 families helped in our first 6 months, she announced. 12 successful legal interventions, over $50,000 in emergency support distributed, and she paused for effect. Our first corporate sponsorship from a major retail chain that wants to partner on awareness campaigns. The room erupted in applause. This was what victory really looked like, not just escaping the trap, but helping others find their way out, too. Later that evening, I sat in my office reviewing applications for our scholarship program. We'd created it to help young adults whose families financially controlled them through education costs. The stories were heartbreakingly familiar: parents draining college funds, siblings demanding tuition money, grandparents using inheritance as manipulation tools. One application stopped me cold. The handwriting was familiar, though the name was different. Emma had applied under her middle name. I read her essay 3 times. It was honest in a way she'd never been before. She wrote about growing up watching Richard manipulate and control, about being taught that family meant taking whatever you could get, about realizing too late that she'd become complicit in something terrible. She was working 2 jobs while taking community college classes, trying to build a life without the toxic foundation she'd been given. What do you think? I asked Sarah, who'd been reading over my shoulder. I think people can change, she said carefully. Question is, do you believe she has? I set the application in the maybe pile. Not approved, not rejected. Some decisions needed more time. The speaking engagement requests had evolved, too. No longer just tell us your trauma, but teach us about building resilient businesses, and share strategies for setting financial boundaries. I accepted selectively, focusing on events that aligned with the Foundation's mission. At a recent conference for female entrepreneurs, a young woman approached after my presentation. You don't know me, she started, then hesitated. My mom is your Aunt Martha. I'm your cousin Stephanie. I tensed, waiting for the attack or manipulation. I wanted to apologize, she continued, for the intervention, for not standing up for you. I was there that day at the cafe and I said nothing. I've watched your success, your foundation, how you've transformed something horrible into something helpful, and I'm ashamed of how our family treated you. Thank you, I said, meaning it. That takes courage to say. I also wanted you to know Grandma Ellen passed last month. She left everything to your foundation. She left everything to your foundation, she continued. Said it was the only good thing to come from Richard's choices. The news hit unexpectedly hard. Ellen, who'd enabled her son for decades, but finally chose truth over comfort. Her estate wasn't massive, but it would fund dozens of scholarships, help countless survivors escape their situations. She also left you this. Stephanie handed me a small jewelry box. Inside, an antique locket with a simple inscription, Truth Sets Free. I wore it to the grand opening of our new retail location, a boutique in the arts district featuring not just my work, but pieces from other artisans who'd overcome adversity. The media coverage was positive but measured, focusing on the business rather than the drama that birthed it. During the ribbon cutting, I spotted a familiar figure in the crowd. Mom, thinner and older looking, standing at the very back. Our eyes met across the space. She didn't approach, didn't smile, just nodded once and left, respecting the boundaries we'd legally established, perhaps for the first time in her life. You okay? Sarah asked, squeezing my hand. Yeah, I really am. Because I was. The anger had faded, replaced by something more complex. Not forgiveness. Some things couldn't be forgiven, but understanding. Maybe they were products of their own trauma cycles, their own financial anxieties, their own moral failures. The boutique opening was a success. Customers who'd followed the journey from the beginning mingled with new faces who just loved the jewelry. The work spoke for itself now, no longer needing the dramatic backstory to sell. As I locked up that night, my phone chimed with a notification. A direct message on Instagram from someone named Diana Creates. "Hi Ally, you don't know me, but your story saved my life. I was trapped funding my family's lifestyle while they destroyed my self-worth. Your interview gave me the courage to leave. Today I registered my own business, a real one, not a hobby. Thank you for showing me it was possible." I screenshot it, adding it to a folder labeled "Why We Do This." On the hardest days, when the trauma tried to creep back in, these messages reminded me that pain could become purpose. The apartment was quiet when I got home. I had moved again, to a place with no bad memories and excellent security. My workshop was separate now, boundaries, even in geography. On my desk sat the latest financial report. The business was thriving. The foundation was growing. The restitution checks kept coming. Small but consistent reminders that justice, however slow, was being served. Richard had another 18 months in prison. Mom lived quietly in a small apartment, working part-time and keeping to herself. Emma was still on the maybe pile. Her future undecided, but her own to shape. And me? I was free, not just from them, but from the anger that had driven me for so long. The business they'd mocked employed 9 people. The hobby they'd dismissed brought beauty into thousands of lives. The woman they'd tried to break had built something unbreakable. I opened my laptop to design new pieces for the spring collection. As I worked, I thought about transformation. How pressure could create diamonds, how fire could forge steel, how the worst chapters of our lives could become the foundations for something beautiful. They'd meant to destroy me with their greed, their violence, their manipulation. Instead, they'd created their worst nightmare, a woman who knew her worth and wouldn't accept anything less. The war was over. The healing had begun. And the future was mine to craft, one careful creation at a time. Please share in the comments below so we can connect and share our thoughts together. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and give this video a like. And if you want more people to hear this story, hit that hype button to help spread the word. Your support means everything.